Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Kentucky to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller. Today, the American Federation of Government Employees Policy Director joins to respond to Elon Musk's idea of an efficiency commission. The North Alabama Area Labor Council has released their endorsements in the Huntsville District 1 runoff, and Mo Brooks wants you to have a living wage. We're going to break all of that down and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number, and the line is open. Give us a call at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a voicemail throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next program. And we do not typically take calls in the main show. We don't typically take calls in the main show, but I do want to, if somebody calls in the main show and you want to talk about the Huntsville District 1 municipal runoff, or you want to react to what Mo Brooks is saying when we play that clip, I will take your call. So put in the YouTube chat where your area code is if you're calling about one of those two things when we get to it, and we will try to pick up. We will for sure be taking calls in the second half of the program after we get off of the radio. We're going to be in the second half of the show breaking down the Teamsters Non-Endorsement, the Teamsters Non-Endorsement, and we will be taking calls. I know a lot of Teamsters listen to the program, and we would love to hear from you. So get that phone number ready again one more time, 844-899-TVLR. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, TVLR.fm. But we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at The Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners, so if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or just make a one-time donation, you can go to TVLR.fm/donate or Patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've got a bunch of merch for sale at TVLR.fm. We've got our logo dad caps, some of our Join a Union tees left, and some pre-orders are open for our union-made matchbooks and a new t-shirt that says Unionize, but it looks like the Supreme logo. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then please do think about getting your union to sponsor the show. You union locals can sponsor the show for as little as $83 a month. That is our lowest sponsor right now, $83 a month, and you can support the program through your union, but we take sponsorships of all size, so please do think about getting your local, your international, your state conference to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that at tvlr.fm/contact.
That's right, and let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WMMT, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. And as most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard unionists who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement and working class deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we can't do it without you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. Whether you're a loyal fan or first-time listener, we appreciate you spending some time with us.
That's right. Appreciate everybody in the chat tuning in. Vivid Luna says, good morning from Tennessee. Jay Blue says, howdy from Montgomery. Pisa Clatton Triple D says, Labor Alabama would be a godsend. You know, we've got a 10-year plan, folks, that's going to have a Labor Party governor in 2034. But most of it's secret, but I can let you in on that. 2034, Labor Party governor of Alabama. That's the plan. GR says, waves from 256/Newmarket. So, looking forward to hearing from you when we get to those topics. Quirky Geek Girl says, good morning from Toronto, and the Canadian Pilots Union got their deal before the strike deadline. We love to hear that. Appreciate the update. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like the stream if you haven't yet. We've got about 30 people watching us on YouTube and not as many likes. Estranged Strayed said, made it just in time. Morning from a mechanic in Indianapolis. Derek says, good morning from Baltimore. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We're going to jump right into last week in Southern labor. So here's what workers in the U.S. South and the American colonies were up to from September 13th to September 20th. In new union campaigns, 359 workers from across 14 units are in new union campaigns, and 119 workers in one unit are in a new decertification in two units. Are in decertification drives. A security guard has filed a petition to decertify the Security Police and Fire Professionals of America, SPFPA, as the union representing 52 security guards at the Environmental Protective Agency, not the Environmental Protection Agency, the government agency. This is some other private sector group. Environmental Protective Agency in Durham, North Carolina. 23 workers at Tractor Supply in Columbia, Tennessee, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, Local 1995. 19 workers at Spiral Diner and Bakery in Fort Worth, Texas, filed a petition to hold a union election with Spiral Workers United. Unclear if they are affiliated with the larger international union Workers United. 15 workers at Penn Hall Company in Austell, Georgia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE, Local 926. 27 workers at Hinchcliffe Acquisition in Hendricks, West Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Teamsters Local 175. 7 workers at Ferguson Enterprises in Riviera Beach, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, UA, Local 630. 1 worker at South Kentucky Rural Electric Cooperative Corporation in Somerset, Kentucky, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local 2100. 85 workers at Forvia, a parts manufacturer in Arlington, Texas, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Auto Workers, UAW. 4 workers at American Electric Power, AEP, Texas, in Zapata, Texas, filed a petition to hold a union election with IBEW, Local 738. 20 workers at the Hospital Corporation of America. Every time I say that, I'm like, wow. Dystopian. That's a dystopian name. HCA Florida, Woodmont in Tamarack, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with 1199 SEIU East. 12 workers at Gulf States Fire Protection in Houston, Texas, filed a petition to hold a union election with the UA's Road Sprinkler Fitter, Local 669. 20 workers at South Florida Public Media Group in Miami, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with SAG-AFTRA. 5 workers at Coca-Cola Consolidated in Montclair, West Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Teamsters Local 175. Workers likely pushed by their employer and with the help of the National Right to Work Foundation, filed a petition to decertify the United Steelworkers, USW, as the union representing 67 workers at National Gypsum in Pryor, Oklahoma. 55 workers at Aquachem in Knoxville, Tennessee, filed a petition to hold a union election with UA Local 102. 66 workers at Merson USA GSTNA Corporation in Columbia, Tennessee, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Industrial Division of the Communication Workers of America, IUE-CWA. In campaign updates, still in the early stages of their organizing campaign in Hearthside Food Solutions HFS Bakery in London, Kentucky, the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union, BCTGM, released a statement yesterday alleging that the company has fired a leader in the union campaign, Ben Nolan, for union activities, and that the union has filed charges against the company for illegal retaliation and will do everything that they can to see Nolan reinstated and for the workers to have a chance at a fair union election. Workers at the Monongalia County Assessor in Monongalia, West Virginia, finally get a union election with the United Mine Workers of America, UMWA, to take place on September 26th, after months of stalling by the employer. Maximus call center workers in Mississippi are continuing to fight for a union and highlight how their campaign has directly benefited workers. Since the beginning of organizing a union in 2017, Maximus workers have seen a reduction in their health care deductibles from $4,000 to $1,800, and an increase in their starting wages from $9 an hour to $17.20 per hour. In election results, 65 workers in 3 units are newly unionized. 11 workers in 2 units withdrew their petition for a union election. 146 workers in 2 units are no longer in an active decertification campaign, and 26 security guards switched representation. So these 2 sets of workers withdrew their petition for a union election. 9 guards at Hanna Technology in Washington, D.C., having previously filed with the Federal Contract Guards of America, and 2 workers at AB Car Rental Services in Louisville, Kentucky, with the Teamsters Local 89. These 2 sets of workers withdrew their decertification petitions, meaning that the unions remain. 98 workers at AT&T Mobility in Metairie, Louisiana, who are part of the CWA, and 48 workers at AT&T Mobility in Ridgeland, Mississippi, who are also part of CWA. 40 workers at AEP Texas in Laredo, Texas, voted in favor of unionization with IBEW Local 738. 16 workers at Live Nation Worldwide in Aberdeen, Kentucky, voted 8-0 in favor of unionization with the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, IATSE, Local 17. 9 workers at BFS Group in Shelbyville, Kentucky, voted 5-4 in favor of unionization with the Teamsters Local 89. 26 security guards at KR Contracting in Sterling, Virginia, voted 10-0 in favor of leaving their current union, Union Rights for Security Officers, URSO, in favor of FCGOA. In settlements, grievances, and unfair labor practices, AL.com has a report out on how an Alabama principal was fired allegedly for being gay, and how she is fighting to get her job back. In strikes and bargaining updates, members of the San Antonio Professional Firefighters Association, an IAFF affiliate, voted to accept a new contract with the city that includes a 21% raise over 3 years, with 97% approval. After a 2-week strike against J-Tran, a bus company in Jackson, Mississippi, the Amalgamated Transit Union, ATU Local 1208, got a tentative agreement, and workers ratified it. GE workers in Louisville, Kentucky, unionized with IUE-CWA Local 761, held a rally last week ahead of their upcoming contract expiration. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has heard the criticism coming from all sectors of stakeholders in the company, from workers to the dealerships, and has said, "No, you're all wrong," in a statement last week. "We are barely more than a week away from an East Coast longshore strike that could have an economic impact of nearly $4 billion per day, with neither side giving in. While the White House could invoke Taft-Hartley to stop the strike, they were unequivocal when asked about it, saying that we've never invoked Taft-Hartley to break a strike and are not considering doing it now. A shuttered Canton, North Carolina mill may have a new owner soon. It's unclear at this point where that leaves the union that previously represented workers at the plant, if they automatically represent workers at a new mill, or if they would have to organize from scratch. The month-long strike of 17,000 CWA members in the South against AT&T has ended with a tentative agreement that raises wages by 19% over 5 years, adds MLK Day as a paid holiday, and adds 5 sick days. Members will now vote on whether or not to accept the deal. The UAW began bargaining with Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee last week. In political and legislative updates, Freddie Brewster has a new piece in The Lever detailing how J.D. Vance is spearheading a lawsuit aimed at further weakening existing campaign finance laws. Elon Musk is attempting to build the world's largest supercomputer in the largely black West Memphis, Tennessee. These supercomputers and AI powering facilities have significant levels of pollution, and apparently Musk's team has not even met with the city council about mitigation of the pollution, much less community groups. Some city council members report learning about the acquisition of the facility by Musk on the news. The facility has also installed gas generators without a permit, among other grievances from the community outlined in a recent NPR report. A Trump judge in Texas has granted an injunction in favor of a company, arguing that the NLRB is unconstitutional. As we head towards another potential government shutdown, the American Federation of Government Employees, the largest federal workers union, AFGE, is calling on Congress to not do that. The AFL-CIO has applauded the Fed for finally cutting interest rates. Even as incomes in Huntsville, Alabama increase, the poverty rate is staying the same. AL.com has a new report out about how the records of Alabama's police officers are uniquely secret. Sam's Club, which employs some 100,000 workers, is raising their minimum starting pay to $16 an hour, up from $15. Several unions representing workers in the arts launched a policy agenda aimed at reimagining public support for the arts. Education unions did a similar thing last week, releasing a policy platform aimed at increasing investment in higher education. Huntsville's unions endorsed Michelle Watkins for city council and Patricia King for school board in Huntsville. Both women are union members. That's it for our union updates. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact, and we'll include it in next week's roundup. We're going to head to a break, and we will be right back with AFGE's policy director about Elon Musk's proposal for an efficiency commission in the federal government. Stay tuned.
Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you are a federal employee and an AFGE member, you're eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life insurance, dental insurance, and AFLAC insurance. Additionally, if you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you can still qualify for several of these money-saving policies. So give Tate Hure a call at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Hure at 256-215-6769.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, You need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law.
You need attorneys always available to take care of you.
Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law.
And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case.
Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We have a caller on the line. We see the caller, but we're going to go through a couple of these other segments before we take your call, but we will take it here in probably 20 minutes or so. Appreciate everybody tuning in on the YouTube. I see you in the chat. Hustler of Culture says, sup from St. Louis. DL Cindero says, peace, comrades and fellow workers. Brandon says, good morning, TVLR. Definitely going to call in about the Teamsters vote later. Interested in your call, interested in your thoughts on that. Jose says, Biena dia, comrades. And Leanne says, good morning. Joe and Mel on the Facebook chat say good morning. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Really quickly, before we get to the policy director of AFGE, we've got a story out of Mexico. The United States worked with the Mexican government to actually benefit workers, if you can believe that. As a result of their cooperation, a Mexican union officer has been reinstated with back pay after he was illegally fired by the company. The situation dates back to June of this year, when a delegate for the Mexican labor union, La Liga Sindical Obrera Mexicana, was fired by Impro Industries, a Chinese-owned parts manufacturer in San Luis Potosi, for organizing workers. That firing triggered the Mexican Union, along with the International Lawyers Assisting Workers Network, to file a petition with the Interagency Labor Committee, a joint committee of the U.S. Secretary of Labor and the U.S. Trade Representative. The petition also alleged irregularities in the collective bargaining agreement's revision vote procedures. According to the committee, they were able to find sufficient evidence of the claims made by the union that such that they were able to invoke the new Rapid Response Mechanism under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, requesting that the Mexican government investigate the situation. After a review by the Mexican government, all regulatory bodies agreed that the rights of the worker and the union had been violated, and the worker was reinstated with back pay. According to the Department of Labor, this is the 25th time in just the last 3 years that the Rapid Response Mechanism has been invoked, and these invocations have directly benefited some 36,000 Mexican workers. So we have Jacqueline on the line now, right?
I do believe so.
Great. Jacqueline Simon is the policy director for the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, which is the largest federal employees union. They represent some 700,000 federal workers across the United States. Jacqueline, welcome back to the program. Appreciate your time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we reached out a couple of weeks ago about talking about this idea that was proposed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump for a Department of Government Efficiency, or an efficiency commission. And so I'm interested just generally, when Elon Musk makes a proposal like this, what does AFGE think that he means to do?
Well, we've seen these kinds of commissions before. I mean, the most notorious that really had an impact, a huge impact, was the Grace Commission back when Ronald Reagan was president. But many presidents have proposed various kinds of commissions, which, they assemble some wise business leaders, wise men, to take a look at the government and decide what should stay and what should go. Inevitably, and especially with Elon Musk, these business leaders have conflicts of interest, because what they want to cut is what they really want to privatized so that they can perform these government functions for a profit. And that's what we would expect, of course, Elon Musk to do. He's got conflict with several government agencies that are trying to regulate his businesses, NASA, the Department of Labor, with what his union busting at Tesla. You've got the National Transportation Safety Board, when his Teslas run off the road and kill people. Right. I mean, you've got all kinds of conflicts. I think he has some kind of a, I can't remember the name of it, but some kind of a medical device that he wants to insert in people's brains. Of course, Neuralink, that's right. That would need FDA approval. So, you've got all those kinds of conflicts of interest from Musk himself. But I think that, the Department of Veterans Affairs tried to assemble a commission like this that would have gone through an inventory to all the VA hospitals and clinics across the country and decided which ones to keep and which ones to close, and all in the context of more privatization of veterans' health care. So that's really what it's about.
Right. And that's exactly like you said, most of these initiatives by, fancy business people, it's interesting that all of these commissions, as far as I can tell, and maybe you can correct me, I don't think I'm wrong, but as far as I can tell, most of these initiatives or these commissions or these committees, they never include the people that actually do the work, right? You would think that if you wanted a committee to genuinely modernize or revamp the VA, that maybe you would have like a VA nurse or a representative from AFGE that works in the VA on one of these committees. And I have never heard of any representatives like that being on these committees. It's all like business people who don't actually do the work. And so what we've seen from committees like this is exactly like you said, they point to privatization as an answer. They say that we have to get these services out of the government because the government is just bad, like de facto. Can you give us a couple of examples or expand on a couple of the examples that you gave about how these privatization schemes have worked in the past? I mean, have they been, shining examples of success for the American consumer or the American veteran or federal workers?
Well, I just want to go back to the first thing you said about having a worker representative on these commissions and boards. It's not unusual. I mean, it's not common, but it happens that on a smaller scale, maybe not a government-wide commission, but an agency-specific commission, that they will put or they invite a member of a union, a representative from a union or a professional organization, maybe even the Federal Managers Association, for example, the people civil servants who manage government programs. And so, but, then that's, of course, a corrupting kind of thing. And just to get back to the whole concept of these kinds of commissions, they're doing the job that Congress doesn't want to do. Congress's basic job is to authorize and authorize the existence of these programs and agencies, and then appropriate money to fund them. And if they were doing their jobs, they would deauthorize or refuse to fund whatever they thought shouldn't exist in the federal government. And that way, if you believe in that there's such a thing as representative government, that way the people making the decisions would not necessarily be corporate leaders, but it would be representatives in Congress who have to be elected and are answerable to their constituents. But members of Congress hate to do that kind of stuff. They want to have us, they want to be removed a couple of steps. And invariably, these big commissions come back to Congress as just an up or down vote with no amendments possible. Take it or leave it. Here's what we propose. Here's our whole big package. Take it or leave it, up or down. And fortunately, during the Obama administration, he had a truly horrendous commission like that would have raised the Social Security age and cut Social Security benefits. And fortunately, Congress voted it down. But there was a lot of pressure to vote vote for it. Privatization is, everybody's always talking about Project 2025. And Project 2025, if you sort of step back and look at what the overall frame for their policy proposals, there's a lot of privatization proposed, certainly in the Department of Veterans Affairs, but also elsewhere throughout government. There's also a substantial amount that they want to get rid of through block grants to the states. There's a big movement now in the right to send everything back to the states and let them decide. Why should the federal government make decisions that would affect everybody? Let's, do things state by state, and allow, of course, waivers of state laws on child labor and minimum wage and environmental laws, anything. You can have the states compete with each other down to the lowest possible standards in order to attract businesses. We've seen that all the time, right?
Yeah, it's worked so well, especially with like unemployment, for instance. It's worked really well to have that be a state-by-state program.
Right. And then, the third way, you've got privatization, you've got the block grants, and then the other one is just, as I was saying earlier, have Congress just completely take back the authorization for the agency or the program and refuse to fund it. What not everybody realizes, though, is that even if when Congress does appropriate funds for a program or an agency, the White House can impound those funds and refuse to spend them. And that's one of the kinds of scenarios we're thinking about if, for example, we get a Democratic Congress and Donald Trump in the White House. He can still just refuse to fund a program, and then it doesn't exist if it doesn't have funding. Right. So he would have a lot of levers to push if he does get the White House that could overrule the will of Congress. So it's all very bleak.
Right. Yes, it is all very concerning, especially in Huntsville. It's interesting that Huntsville has, for years, sent somebody as a representative like Mo Brooks, who's just kind of crazed in his anti-government beliefs. Dale Strong is a little bit more moderate, I think, but even still, as dependent on Huntsville is, for instance, on federal investment, it is wild that we have such anti-government people representing us in D.C. But back to the, privatization example. Have you got any offhand, examples of these, the recommendations from these kind of privatization reports being implemented and what some of the results were?
Well, we've killed these commissions. So, but, what's the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the biggest areas of privatization that's going on right now in the federal government is veterans health care. We're now up to 40% of all veterans healthcare dollars are being spent on private sector care. Even with the PACT Act, which provided more resources to the VA, and because the number of patients that are now eligible for treatment under the PACT Act grew substantially. So there was a hiring surge at VA, and even with that hiring surge, the proportion of spending has shifted rapidly in the direction of private care, and is only going to grow. There's still much, much more pressure, and God forbid if Donald Trump wins, then you can just say goodbye to the VA healthcare system. They would maybe retain certain things that are not profitable for the private sector to provide. But for the most part, we'd see a lot of closures. We'd see closures all across the country, and it would be private care. And we all know that private care is not only more expensive than the care provided by the government, but it's also been shown by study after study after study to produce worse outcomes for veterans. And so it's just a 1-2 punch. It costs more and the quality's lower. Veterans have fairly unique, complex kind of combinations of health problems as a result of their service. And the VA specializes in treating those kinds of complexities, and the private sector doesn't see that kind of stuff very often. So it's a privatization disaster that we can watch happening in real time, and it's happening right now.
You know, speaking of some other federal agencies, some of the conversation explicitly mentioned cutting, or Trump explicitly praised Musk for cutting in some of his right. companies that he runs. Could you explain to folks what it would do for federal services if their staff and budget were cut even further? And specifically, I'm thinking about agencies like OSHA and the EEOC, for instance. I seem to remember some really bad statistics about their funding and their staff levels versus the workload over the last 10 to 15 years for those agencies.
Well, OSHA, of course, is part of the Department of Labor. And if you look at this year's appropriations bills that were passed by the House, by the Republicans, and promoted by the Republican Study Committee and the kind of organizations that were behind Project 2025, you've got 10 and 11% cuts in their budget. I think the big one is EPA. Not necessarily EEOC. EPA, they proposed to cut by 40% this year, just in 1 year. I mean, if you look at Project 2025 or the Republican Study Committee's recommendations, they're really obsessed with trying to erase the very concept of climate change from any kind of government research or policy or regulation. And of course, also DEI, but the big one, in terms of dollars and cents and jobs, has to do with trying to do away with all work at EPA and also other agencies, NOAA, the Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy. Department of Energy's got a lot of proposed cuts. If you don't have people doing this work, I think some of the most compelling work comes out of the Department of Agriculture. I mean, anybody, you don't have to be a farmer to know that agriculture really depends on knowledge about climate.
Right.
Nothing is affected more by climate than agriculture, and farmers and ranchers require this data and to be able to project future climate events and trends. And if the agriculture department isn't providing it and isn't doing that research, well, it's not, of course, it's jobs, it's federal jobs, but it's also the country doing without very important information that will help us prepare ourselves for the future. And that's true at EPA. It's true in every agency.
Right. Well, and speaking, we've been talking about how this would affect, the constituents, the citizens of the United States, the people that live here, right? Obviously, it's going to be bad if you do not have a government that is as able to monitor, corporations who want to poison your water, or bosses who want to violate your rights on the job or make you work unsafe conditions. It's going to be bad for you in that case. But also, it is worth considering what this would do to federal workers. There are, a lot of people are employed by the federal government. And so, the most extreme end of these types of proposed cuts are on the order of 50% of all federal workers. Vivek Ramaswamy was one of the people proposing that. What would that mean? What would cuts of that magnitude or smaller? I don't think that we would actually be seeing a cut of 50% of all federal employees. But, if they got their way, we would see significant cuts. What would that do to federal workers? What would that mean for us? And then if we did see implementations of some of these more extreme proposals, what would it do to the American economy?
Well, I'm thinking back to George W. Bush's administration. He did, in fact, implement a policy that subjected half of all federal jobs to what privatization studies. There was consideration of contracting out and privatizing literally half of all federal jobs. And I should have brought up the impact on federal employees. Thank you for doing it. Of course, it would be devastating to federal employees to lose their jobs. I mean, these are people who've developed expertise and devoted their lives to public service and devoted their lives to developing the expertise in whatever program they're working in for the benefit of the public, and to just have that ripped away, and of course, the impact on their families. They won't have a paycheck anymore. There's not necessarily a demand in the private sector for their expertise. Maybe the contractor would hire them on different terms and in a different location. It'd be terrible for federal employees. Of course, it's terrible for federal employees. But it's not as far-fetched as it sounds, because we've seen this movie before, and we've seen it most recently with George W. Bush.
I really like that you brought up that recommendation from George W. Bush, because people like to try to, and there's some amount of reason for this, right? But people really like to paint Trump and that movement as unique and totally different from the history of the Republican Party, and just a complete aberration. And these are really kind of rabid, radical types. But actually, in fact, it's very much in the tradition of the modern Republican Party, the kind of Trump wing. So I really appreciate you bringing out that this is even the most radical proposals of the modern kind of Trump movement with respect to the federal government is only a retread of something that George Bush, who now we're supposed to love George Bush, right? I mean, he finger paints. Isn't he so cute? He's such a cute old man. He shares candy with Michelle Obama. We love George Bush. But the most radical proposal for the federal government is just a retread of something that he did 20 years ago. I think that that's a really important point. So, Jacqueline Simon, Policy Director of the American Federation for Government Employees, the largest federal workers union. I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. Okay, folks. So the Huntsville's municipal runoff is going to be on September 24th. September 24th is going to be the District 1 runoff. Huntsville had its municipal elections about a month ago, and the races in District 1 went to a runoff. That's City Council and School Board. Both of them did. And the North Alabama Area Labor Council, which is the regional federation of unions, opted not to endorse in the first round, but did endorse in the second round. And in the second round, the North Alabama Area Labor Council endorsed Michelle Watkins for City Council and Patricia King for School Board. Again, the election is Tuesday, September 24th. The reasons that the Labor Council put out for supporting these two candidates are that for Michelle Watkins on the City Council, she told the Labor Council that she supports the appointment of union members and working people to existing city boards and commission. She also supports the creation of a commission devoted to labor and workforce participation, led by representatives of organized labor. She has committed to using union print shops, and she is using union print shops moving forward. She committed to publicly supporting unions and union campaigns and maintaining dialogue with North Alabama's unions. Patricia King on the school board committed to the same things as far as using union print shops, publicly supporting unions, maintaining dialogue with the labor movement. She also said that she will respect the current meet and confer policy for school worker organizations, and that she will oppose any attacks on the retirement systems of Alabama and fight attempts to cut pensions. Also, she said she is opposed to privatization in the schools, and these are really important things to keep in mind as you vote on Tuesday. The North Alabama Area Labor Council, their endorsement was covered in the Alabama Political Reporter. You can read a little bit more about it there. And that's, really, I don't have just a whole lot more to say, especially about the city council race. Make sure that you vote. Go check out the Labor Council's Facebook page if you want to learn more about their reasons for endorsements and things like that. But the school board race is, there's a little bit more, especially with Adam's history in education in Huntsville. The two candidates in the race are Chandra Jones and Patricia King. And so, Adam, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the history of these two candidates in Huntsville's education system over the last, 10 or 15 years?
Sure. Well, I started teaching in Huntsville City Schools back in 2012. And, in 2015, I started working for the Alabama Education Association and represented about 1,500 Huntsville City Schools employees. So I got to know, all these individuals, all four individuals on some level or not in the election. And, at the time, Casey Wardynski was the superintendent of Huntsville City Schools. He was an architect of privatization and corporate-style reform. Part of his agenda included closing a lot of schools, consolidating schools. Butler High School was closed, and very controversially, J.O. Johnson High School was closed in North Huntsville. It was a predominantly black high school, and had been around since the 60s. It was closed and moved to a new building with a new name, Mae Jemison High School. And there was a lot of controversy in the community about that, especially the way it was done. It was, perceived as an outside intrusion, and it was also, brought up in the context of Grissom High School on the other side of town, a predominantly white, more affluent school. They also needed a new building, but they didn't have their name taken away or anything like that. So there was a lot of concern in the community about that particular issue. And at the time, Chandra Jones was one of the folks who was aligned with Casey Wardynski, was very supportive of this move. Both Patricia King and Michelle Watkins were against it. They also were more broadly against the Wardynski administration, and that's how I got to know them. Patricia, is a longtime activist. She was someone who I knew would be following the school board. I knew I could count on her to attend school board meetings, to get the word out about important issues, always willing to speak up for educators and the employees. And likewise with Michelle Watkins. And, in 2016, Michelle was elected to the school board position for District 1, and she defeated Lori McCauley, who had been the school board president. Lori McCauley was a close ally of Wardynski, helped bring him to town and, carry out his agenda. And it was really kind of a rejection. That election was a rejection of Wardynski and his allies, such as Lori McCauley, who is currently very prominently supporting Chandra Jones. And so I've heard, chatter in the community that, a vote for Chandra Jones is a vote for Lori McCauley. Whether you agree with that statement or not, there's clearly reasons why people think that. And so, those are some of the dynamics going into the race. I also want to point out that a gentleman named David Driscoll, who is a longtime political operative in this area, is running Chandra Jones' campaign. I encountered David Driscoll quite a bit. He's run multiple campaigns in the area, done a lot of sleazy tactics in these campaigns, frankly, such as putting people's mugshots on flyers and things of that nature. He called Frances Akridge a socialist, which is hilarious.
Especially after her tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. But, he was a controversial figure at this, 2015, 2016 time as well, because he was running multiple school board candidates' campaigns while also working for the school district and doing PR work for them. And so he was doing opposition research on, activists like myself and Michelle Watkins and Patricia King, attending community meetings and things like that. You never really knew who he was working for, right? He was getting paid from the big money establishment. And in this election, it looks like the big money establishment is pulling for Chandra Jones. I do know Chandra, or at least I've met Chandra a few times when I taught at J.O. Johnson High School. Really respect her as an individual, and she put in a lot of time as a parent volunteer. And I know teachers who I worked with over in that side of town are supporting her, right? And I respect those teachers. But I respect what you shared in terms of the Labor Council's rationale. And the last thing I'll say on that is that Ms. Jones did not respond to the Labor Council's questionnaire or interview request, but Patricia did. So I'm sure that made a difference as well. But that's all I, have off the top of my head here. I know we've got a caller on the line who also wants to discuss this election. But do you have any other questions for me, Jacob?
I don't think so. I did want to make sure that we mentioned that the Labor Council did note that Chandra Jones did not respond to or respond to a request for an interview with the Labor Council, or did not fill out the questionnaire that they sent all the candidates. So I don't think I have any other questions. Maybe the caller will have some other questions or thoughts that will jog my memory if I have anything else. So we do have a caller. Let's bring them on the line. Caller from a 256 area code. What is your name and where are you calling from? 256 area code. Can you hear us? I can hear you. It sounds like you're in a car. I don't know if you're hearing us. You're on the air right now. One more chance for the person been on the line for a little while from a 256 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from? All right.
Give us a call back and try again.
We can try it again later. If you want to get where they had the opportunity to be, you can give us a call at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We're definitely interested in folks' thoughts on the election, the District 1 runoff. So give us a call at 844-899-8857.
Let's see. I think our caller tried, so let's see if you can hear us.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Hello.
Hey, yes, we can hear you. What's your name and where are you calling from? Well, I heard the hello.
Okay, if you're talking, we can't hear you right now. Oh no. Yeah, we're sorry. It's just not going through.
Okay. Well, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back with Mo Brooks talking about some comments that he made last week.
That's a blast from the past, Mo Brooks.
It really
I'd almost forgotten about him for a second, and you had to remind me of him.
Yes, I did. He's still a regular on the radio around here, so I'm going to check out what he had to say last week. So stay tuned, folks. You're still listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. We will be right back.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer,
and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Ironworkers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Ironworkers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at AFGE.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law.
You need attorneys always available to take care of you.
Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law.
And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case.
Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We're trying to figure out if the problem is on our end with the phone systems. So I think Adam is calling in with his phone just to test it out. And so what's the word, Adam? Are you how's it sounding?
Let's see. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you over the phone, but can you hear us over your phone?
No, I cannot.
Yeah. So that's the issue.
That's a bummer.
Okay. So, let's see. We're thinking on it. And so here's,
It's all good. We'll finish up our main show. We'll see what we can fix in the overtime break, and hopefully be able to take calls in overtime. I know we were looking forward to hearing from some Teamsters as well, but we'll do our best to fix it, folks. But good thing we have plenty to talk about, even if we can't get your calls. So we'll do our best, y'all.
All right. So here's the clip from Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks, if you can believe it, he has some opinions on this Haitian immigrant stuff. I know that may be out of character for Mo Brooks. if you don't know literally anything about him, but he has some opinions about this Haitian immigrant stuff, and he has some, a really interesting proposal to deal with what he sees as the issues in this situation. So let's go ahead and play this clip, and we're gonna, we're gonna break it down along the way.
Is that where we're at? Are we literally at? We have to change the president of the United States in order to do something about this?
No, the state legislature, if they're willing to take on their special interest masters, can fix this problem just as quick as they want to fix it. The reason that these manufacturers and other employers of non-citizens prefer to hire non-citizens is it's cheap foreign labor. They don't want to have to, these employers don't want to have to pay market wages to American citizens. Okay? So what can the legislature do?
Okay, pause. Hold on just for a second. Here's the question. The question is, or the hypothesis and the question. The hypothesis is they don't want to give good market wages to American citizens, and the legislature can fix this just as soon as they want if they're willing to buck their masters, their special interest masters. Adam, what would you think are some ways that we could force or entice a company to pay higher wages through the mechanisms of the state?
Well, I mean, last I checked, we had minimum wage laws. Last I checked, we could do community benefits agreements. We could, not fight unions, right? Who absolutely would raise the wages for all workers. There's all sorts of policies and approaches you could take if you're serious about making sure that companies pay a living wage to American workers. There's plenty of incentives and tax subsidies that are given to companies down here. You could put strings attached to it. I don't know. We could keep going.
So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe Mo Brooks is going to propose having a higher minimum wage, or maybe attaching a prevailing wage to state incentives. These are ideas that seem pretty kind of straightforward. And so let's see if that's the proposition.
Change the economic dynamics of current circumstances such that it is no longer in the interest of these employers to hire cheap foreign laborers rather than pay a living wage to American citizens. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can initially make the employers responsible for all the damage and liabilities of these non-citizens while they're in the United States of America. So if a non-citizen kills...
Hold on, yeah, wait. What damages? I mean, I don't know. I've never seen any proof that workers who are here under various, different forms of legal status, but there's different forms of it, right? And these workers who are working, as far as I know, are not like especially causing harm in the community. So I'm going to call BS on that personally.
Well, I mean, look, I don't, there must be, I would be actually shocked if in some cases when there were, if there was literally zero immigrants who came here, legally or otherwise, frankly, that ultimately like got in a car crash and
Sure,
caused some sort
right.
of like
a big
that
enough
would be,
population of people is going to have people who do various
so that's
things.
for sure happened, but it's like, why do you so he's proposing setting up this kind of Rube Goldberg mechanism by which the employer would be more incentivized to pay higher wages to American workers instead of, if your concern is genuinely, I want people to make higher wages, I want people to get higher wages, you could just legislate that. Right? If that's actually your concern, you could just do it. You could just do it. If that was your concern. Now, if your concern was discouraging immigration and trying to spread narratives about how they're harmful to the community and trying to pit native workers against immigrant workers, then maybe you might want to cloak your proposals in this idea about I care about the American worker, but then instead of doing something that actually just straight up benefits people, you would do something to you would set up, again, this Rube Goldberg kind of mechanism that you say is because, I want people to make higher wages, but really is just about spreading narratives about immigrants to make them seem like they are not beneficial to the community or like they're uniquely bad or something, right? That might be what you do if your concern is just, I don't like immigrants.
Right. I mean,
maybe.
You don't have to hurt one group of workers to help another group of workers.
Right.
I just don't buy that premise. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's keep playing this clip.
All right.
Is that where we're at? Are we literally at, we have to change the president of the United States?
Where we were at here. And his foolish ideas.
The employer who's profiting from that non-citizen's presence in the state of Alabama should be civilly liable to the victims of that homicide. The employer should be civilly liable for the automobile wrecks where innocent American citizens, Alabama citizens, are having to fork out money because the non-citizens don't have insurance to cover it, or because the non-citizens don't understand or don't choose to abide by our traffic laws in America. You suddenly make these employers liable for the damages, all damages of any kind, caused by non-citizen employees that they have brought into our communities by hiring them, and that dramatically changes the economics and the will of these employers to hire non-citizens rather than paying a living wage to American citizens. That's something the legislature can quite clearly do. We have total control over tort law. There is no federal preemption on this particular issue. A second thing that the state of Alabama can do is make the employers liable for the additional government services that are required to pay for these non-citizens being in the state of Alabama. Quit dunning taxpayers. Instead, dun the employers who are hiring non-citizens.
So there you go. That is the Rube Goldberg mechanism that Mo Brooks wants to set up to try to incentivize potentially employers to pay Americans higher wages. Instead of, again, it's a very simple thing. You could literally just say, if you get incentives in Alabama from the state of Alabama, you have to pay the prevailing wage. You have to pay the median salary that you get in Alabama, or you have to pay 25% plus the median salary in Alabama. Right? You could do any of these things that you want. You could say that you're not going to. It's a mandatory that if you take incentives from the state of Alabama, you're not going to fight union campaigns, and unions obviously increase wages. You could do any manner of incredibly direct thing that will obviously help American workers, Alabama workers. Some of it might end up helping immigrant workers, but if you're just concerned with helping people and not hurting people and not kicking people that are down or that you perceive as lower than, that is something that you could do, right? But if, as I said, your genuine interest is not really so much about improving people's well-being, then you could try to do these kinds of things to spread narratives about immigrants and try to make them seem like they are more of a burden on the community than they benefit. And, this is not obviously the first time that stories like this have been spread about immigrants or narratives like this have been put out about immigrants. I mean, literally any group that has come to the United States has gone through this sort of period, right? I mean, you had the Irish and the Southern Europeans, right? I mean, they were not perceived as white when they came here, and they were vilified in exactly the same way as these immigrants are being. And ultimately, I think at this point, we can recognize that as far as the United States of America goes, the immigration of Irish people and Southern Europeans was beneficial, or was at the very least not harmful to the United States. And we will, I have no doubt, in 30, 40 years' time, we will look back on the increase in Hispanic and Haitian immigration to the United States in much the same way, and we will think that it was very, very strange and not motivated explicitly by, the economic kind of stuff as far as, these sorts of things. But, we did talk about how there, no doubt there is some sort of economic motivation about this and concern about people who have come from a country with a lower standard of living undercutting you in the job market. But the answer to that is organization and solidarity and unionization, because if you come to a place and you go to an employer, if you go to an employer that does not have a union and you say, I will work for, $12 an hour, whereas you're typically paying people $15 an hour, then the employer has the ability to hire you for that and then to fire somebody who is making $15 an hour. But if you come to a union employer with a union contract that sets wage rates, it is not possible to be undercut by immigrants in that union workplace, right? That's how we lift up American workers, Alabama workers, and immigrants at the same time. We eliminate, we take labor out of competition, right? We do not allow the underpayment and exploitation of labor to be one of these competitive race to the bottom type things. We come together in solidarity and we set standard wage rates across the industry so that nobody is being exploited or taking advantage of. That's kind of that's the way to approach these problems if you are coming at these problems from a place of helping people first, as opposed to a place of not liking immigrants. So there you go. We do have a caller on the line, and so caller, if you're listening to us on the radio, or if you've got us pulled up, what we're going to do is, because for some reason our phone systems, and I'm not getting an answer from our engineer tech person. I think he's hiking and he doesn't have signal, and so our voice is not going out. Our voice is not going out on the phone system, right? Our voice is not going out on the phone system, and so we're not able to have this back and forth from the callers, but we do still want to take calls. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring you on the line. You'll hear a beep, and that'll be your cue to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and give us your comment, what you want to say. Keep it short, 2 to 3, 4 minutes tops, right? And then we'll take you off the air and we'll respond. That's going to be the best. That's going to be really the only way that we can take calls. But we really do want. We wanted today to be a more interactive show, especially about the topics that we have lined up today. So that's what we're going to try to do. So when you hear the beep on the phone, that's your cue. You're on the air. Tell us your name, where you're calling from, and give us your comment, and then we'll take you off the air and we'll respond. So we have somebody now called in from a 256 area code. Let's go ahead and bring them on the air. Tell us what your name is and where you're calling from.
Hello, this is Garrett from Newmarket, Alabama, just outside of Huntsville. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you, but you can't hear me. That's the thing. So go ahead and... I don't know if you didn't... Yeah, I don't... Okay, yeah, I don't know if he did.
That's just not going to work, Jacob.
I guess Garrett was not hearing the... I'm sorry. I'm very frustrated.
It's all good. But the phones are just not going to work for right now. We're very sorry about that. Yeah, because there's no way for you to hear us. And so it's just not working right. It sounds like we can get some signal from them. But yeah, apologize for that. We'll see if we can fix it during the break for overtime.
Or we will try to, at least, anyway. So if you have a comment, you can put it in the chat. We had somebody, one of the people that wanted to call in was, let's try this again. I think this person heard the spiel. So this one, let's go ahead and bring them on and see if we can do that from a 256 area code. Did you?
Hi, this is Lee from Huntsville, and I'm calling in about the District 1 race and wanted to say a couple of things. Devin Keith, while I think he has three problems. I put this in the chat. The first problem is that he has a record. He was convicted, conveniently, of 31 counts of stealing from Walmart, just enough to keep it a misdemeanor and not a felony. Second, he put a $3 million investment in Stoner Park, which many people up there have said, not needed, not necessary, not really wanted. That money could have been much better spent in North Huntsville than that. It's just kind of a folly. And number three, he appoints members to boards, a lot of them from the Committee of 100 list. Michelle has committed to not being restricted to that list when appointing board members. And I think that's important. I think board members there's a lot of boards, some of which are very, very important. People need to go to the city council meetings. People need to pay attention to what's happening in Huntsville. She's going to place people who understand that particular board subject as well as are from her district. A lot of people don't realize that when these people nominate, they don't have to be from their district. And also, I'm not into unions. Sorry.
All right, appreciate your call, and maybe sometime when the phone lines are working properly, you can call in and we can talk about that, because I would love to get more callers about more callers who disagree with us, and we can have something of a discussion or debates about stuff like that. We mentioned the other day that we have surprisingly few angry callers or callers that disagree with us for being on a conservative radio station. So hopefully we would love if you could call back at some point when our unions are or when our phones are working a little bit better, and we can talk about that. A couple other things that this person mentioned in the chat was that I've also heard from District 1 that Devin isn't responsive to the public's requests and needs. He's unavailable a lot. So there you go. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much. We are going to hit Boss Watch. We're going to take a look at what bosses were up to in the United States South and the American colonies really quick. Then we're going to go to the second half of the program that we call Overtime. You can find it on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to keep streaming live, and we're going to try in the break between the first and the second half of the program, we're going to try to see if we can fix our phone system. Not going to make any guarantees because I'm not a tech guy, but we'll see what we can do. So So yeah, let's go ahead and check out what bosses were up to in the United States South and the American colonies. Over in Missouri, we had $1 million thief. The U.S. Department of Labor has filed suit in federal court against a Jefferson City buffet restaurant and its owner after investigators with the department's wage and hour division found servers worked for tips only and cooks were paid a set cash salary regardless of how many hours they worked, leading to violations of minimum wage or overtime regulations. Filed on September 17th, 2024 in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri, the lawsuit seeks $1.87 million, representing $935,000 in back wages and an equal amount in liquidated damages for 26 workers. That is insane. Stealing $1 million from 26 workers. How much is that per worker? Let's see. Almost $40,000 stolen per worker. That is absolutely bizarre. That is crazy. But this is what bosses do. The department also assessed a civil money penalty of $35,000 for willful violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. The action comes after the department's wage and hour division found from at least December 21st, 2021 through July 31st, 2024, the employer violated federal regulations by doing the following: by paying cooks and other back-of-the-house employees straight time rates for when overtime rates should have been paid, failing to pay servers and other front-of-the-house employees the required minimum wage and overtime pay, paying servers only the tips they received, and not maintaining complete and accurate time records as required. Allowing servers to work for tips only and pay a set cash wage to cooks blatantly violates federal wage law. All too often, our food service industry investigations find employers violating federal overtime, minimum wage, and record-keeping regulations. At the same time, workers are unaware of their rights and afraid to question their paycheck's accuracy, said Wage and Hour District Director Noah Lee. In addition to paying back wages, damages, and penalties, the lawsuit seeks to forbid Dragon Kitchen and Cheng from future FLSA violations and requires them to provide employees information on their federal wage protections in languages employees request. In fiscal year 2023, the Wage and Hour Division recovered more than $29 million in back wages for food service industry workers nationwide. In Louisiana, we have some more thieves, lots of thieves this week. In Louisiana, renowned for its food and restaurant options, the New Orleans economy depends on its service on the city's service workers, including 359 people employed by 5 restaurants that the U.S. Department of Labor investigators found made illegal wage deductions and paid them less than the minimum wage. The department's Wage and Hour Division, determined by Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon, the Hideout Bar, Mambo's, Oceana Grill, and the Old Nola Cookery, deducted the cost of uniforms, order errors, liquor shortages, customer walkouts, and customer credit card disputes from employees' wages. Jeez, that's wild. In violation of federal regulations. The investigation recovered $109,000, including $54,000 in back wages and an equal amount in damages for the tipped servers and bartenders. The investigations are part of an ongoing enforcement initiative by the division to identify violations in the restaurant industry and recover back wages. If warranted, the division will recover damages and assess civil money penalties. Wow. Over in Texas, we have some more thieves. The U.S. Department of Labor recovered $230,000 in back wages from the owner and operator of a Happy Lamb Hot Pot franchise in Grand Prairie that denied 47 restaurant workers required minimum and overtime wages and illegally allowed a manager to keep a portion of servers' tips. The recovery follows an investigation by the department's Wage and Hour Division of XFY Times Square LLC that found the employer violated federal regulations when it did the following. It paid the affected workers for scheduled hours but did not calculate actual hours worked, which led to overtime and, in some cases, minimum wage violations. It incorrectly paid the restaurant's cooks straight time rates for overtime hours worked and allowed the general manager to include himself in the front of the house workers' tip pool illegally. Far too often, our investigators find restaurant industry workers falling victim to wage theft, said Wage and Hour Division Director Jesus L. A. Valdez in Dallas. Employers must pay workers all of their rightful wages.
Wow.
Wow.
Lots of thieves.
Lots of thieves. We have some discriminators to round us out, though. Over in Georgia, Osmos Utilities Services Incorporated, a provider of services and products to utility companies to support their infrastructures, violated federal law when it denied an employee an accommodation for her disability and then fired her, the EEOC charged in a lawsuit filed last week. According to the EEOC's lawsuit, one call locator who had suffered a head injury and stroke requested to work fully remote from home as an accommodation. In-person attendance was not an essential function of the position, and Osmos Utilities had previously allowed the employee to work remotely while its office was relocated in 2019. However, Osmos Utilities denied the employee's request to work remotely as an accommodation for her medical condition. Alternatively, the employee requested to work remotely for 2 to 3 days per week. However, Osmos Utilities denied the employee's alternative request. Although the employer granted the employee leave to attend medical appointments, management complained about the employee leaving work to go to medical appointments and pressured her to end her appointments prematurely. 6 weeks after her first accommodation request, the employee was fired without any warning. Such alleged conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, which prohibits disability discrimination and retaliation against an employee with a disability. The EEOC is seeking back pay, compensatory damages, and punitive damages for the employee, as well as injunctive relief to prevent future discrimination. This case highlights the importance of considering remote work as a reasonable accommodation for employees with disabilities, said Marcus G. Keegan, regional attorney for the EEOC's Atlanta District Office. Employees have the right to request reasonable accommodations under the ADA and should not be treated adversely when they do so. Daryl Graham, district director of the EEOC's Atlanta District Office, said employers must understand that disability discrimination is both illegal and unacceptable, and we will vigorously pursue justice on behalf of workers who are denied their rights to reasonable accommodations and unlawfully terminated because of a disability. So that is our last segment for the first half of the program. We're about to head into the second half of the show, where we will be talking to the president of the engineers union at Boeing in the Pacific Northwest. We'll also be giving you updates about the UAW's Volkswagen negotiations and talking about the Teamsters Non-Endorsement. Before we head into the second half of the program, Adam, do we have any plugs?
Yeah, just your usual reminder to go to labornotes.org/events for free and low-cost trainings. On October 1st, they have What to Do When Your Union Breaks Your Heart. Unfortunately, that's one you might have to attend sometime. Speaking of Labor Notes, registration is online for the Alabama Troublemaker School on Saturday, October 19th in Birmingham. Again, go to labornotes.org/events to find that. You don't want to miss it. If you're within driving distance, we expect to see you there. Saturday, September 28th is the annual meeting for Alabama Arise. It's open to all members and delegates of member groups to shape the upcoming year's legislative agenda. You can participate in person in Montgomery, live via Zoom, or watch the recordings later and vote electronically. You can go to alarise.org for more information. Don't forget to vote in District 1 runoff, Tuesday, September 24th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can go to the North Alabama Area Labor Council's Facebook page for more information on their endorsements. And that's all I got for you.
All right. That's going to be it for the first half of the program. We're about to head into the second half, but if you're not following us there, we will see you next week. All right, folks, appreciate you sticking around. Like I said, about to head into the second half of this program. We're going to see if we can't figure out what's going on with the phones.
You know, it's always when we're short-staffed.
I know it.
Every time, you know, it's just inevitable. That's how it goes.
Yeah. But you know, wish us luck. Send us good vibes. Pray for us if that's your thing, and maybe we'll be able to figure out where the gremlins are and get them kicked out of the wires. So we're about to head into overtime. Stay tuned, folks. We will be right back.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in
folks. Welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We are now in overtime. That's the second half of the radio program. Used to be online only, but now carried by WMMT in Whitesburg, Kentucky. Very excited about that. Speaking of that, if you live in an area and that we're not on the radio, but you'd like for us to get on the radio, then reach out to your local radio station. Ask them to play us, and you can get us in touch with them. If you're listening to us on as a podcast, then give us a 5-star rating if you haven't already. That really helps us out. Also, like the stream if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel. All of that good stuff. We've got great overtime lined up for you. We're going to be giving you updates on the UAW's Volkswagen negotiations. We're also going to be talking to the president from the engineers union at Boeing. We will, and then after that, we'll be talking about this Teamsters Non-Endorsement. We will be taking calls, but it will have to be the way that we did it before. Adam and I are not good with the tech stuff, and frankly, I have no idea why the callers are not hearing us. I have no idea what is not connecting, but we can hear the callers. So what we're going to have to do, and make sure you listen. You can call in. And when you hear the beep on the phone, you'll announce yourself, your name, where you're calling from, and give us your spiel. What you wanted to talk about. Keep it short, 2 to 4 minutes tops, and then we'll respond to it after we take you off the air. So that's how we're going to have to do it. We appreciate everybody tuning in and being patient with us. You can also leave us a voicemail if you are hearing this after we are live at the same phone number, 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. Jacob Jones in the chat asks, not good with tech stuff. What are you, a boomer? Yes, I am, actually. My parents were very, very religiously conservative growing up, so I didn't get a smartphone until I was 21. 21 is when I got my first smartphone. So I did not do a lot of computer stuff growing up. Did not grow up with a smartphone. So we wanted to quickly give you an update on the UAW at Volkswagen and talk about some of the what's going on there. We've got a clip for you. It's about 3 minutes long from the rally that they held about a week ago today in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to kick off the contract campaign. And in this clip, they kind of set the stage for why Volkswagen can meet their demands. They're going to lay it out. They're going to lay it out really clearly and explain that, yes, Volkswagen can do the things that we are going to ask them to do in these negotiations. And then after that, I'm going to go through some of the things that they're going to be asking for in negotiations. But I felt like this is a really good place to start with. And to underline again before we start the clip, they said this later in the rally. They said, what you are willing to do, speaking to the Volkswagen employees, the new members of the UAW, what you are willing to do and how far you are willing to go will determine how far this committee can go. And that's a really good message, really puts the power where it is, where it ought to be, and where folks need to realize it to be, and that is with the members, with the workers. And so let's listen to Sean Fain lay out exactly how Volkswagen can meet their demands.
They're going to pretend that the sky is going to fall if we get our fair share of the $24 billion in profits Volkswagen made in 2023. $24 billion. They'll try to spook you into various interpretations of takes on the market conditions. But here's what we know. Volkswagen's most important market is right here in North America. Yeah. Their path forward runs right through Chattanooga, Tennessee. So let's break down the numbers. These charts, in this one chart, you can see the entire economic story of Volkswagen over the past few years. Since 2021, Volkswagen profits have shot up 49% compared to the previous 3 years. In 2023 alone, the company made $24.4 billion in profits, so business is booming. And what's Volkswagen done with those staggering profits? Did they pass it on to the workers? No. Oh, okay. Damn. So, the reality is this. Here are the facts, what they've done with that money. First off, they take care of the folks at the top like they always do. They make sure they get theirs. CEO Oliver Bloom made over $10 million in compensation last year alone. Even worse than that, as you can imagine, Bloom's very happy. He's very pleased by these profits generated by your labor. But it brings us to the next group that's benefited even more from your hard work. Folks, I can hear them already saying it, man. You guys got them ready already, don't you, man? The shareholders, they're rich shareholders. They're already rich. Last year, Volkswagen distributed $12.7 billion in dividends to shareholders. Last year alone. In just 2 years, shareholders have seen a 288% boost in dividends. Think of that. A 288% raise at the top. That's unheard of. That's billions of dollars that have been robbed from the workers who generated those profits. It's billions of dollars that weren't spent on the EV transition. It's billions of dollars being spent on mansions in faraway countries and yachts in private marinas and not being spent in the local businesses right here in Tennessee. You want to know what you've done? Since 2011, this Volkswagen plant has rolled out more than 1.5 million vehicles. That's over $50 billion in sales. In just over a decade, you built this empire with your blood, with your sweat, and with your dedication, your sacrifice. But what investment in Chattanooga workers have we seen in return for that? Why should you accept less when you give just as much or more than any of those people? You're the backbone of this plant, you're the backbone of this company, and you deserve your fair share of the wealth that you create. And here's another fact I want you to think about. With the kind of profits you're generating, Volkswagen could double your wages, not raise prices, and still make billions of dollars. It's a choice.
There we go. Very clearly, and that's interesting that, it is so clear that Volkswagen can meet the demands of the UAW because Volkswagen is having issues in Germany, or at least they're saying they're having issues about market conditions and that they need to right-size the company. And so this kind of makes you wonder to what extent what they're saying in Germany is even true, or to what extent they are kind of misrepresenting some of the facts to make it seem like they need to scrape more money off of the workers in Germany. It seems very clear that the workers in Tennessee are done with that kind of dynamic. They have been some of the lowest paid auto workers in the United States for a long time. A lot of the transplants have taken have gone the route of trying to nearly match the UAW contracts, so to kind of ward off unionization, and they have not done that at Volkswagen. It's always pretty consistently been like 25, 30 or more % less than the wages that you would get in a UAW bargaining units. So seems like they're tired of that kind of dynamic, and they're ready to push back. Here are some of the demands that the UAW is saying the Volkswagen Negotiating Committee of the UAW is going to be taking to the bargaining table. Bargaining started last week. So they want accountability and respect on the job. They want higher health and safety measures, better health and safety measures. They say work shouldn't hurt. They want higher wages. They want better PTO and fair attendance policies. They want a secure retirement. They want to move forward instead of backward. They want affordable health care, and Sean Fain in the speech was talking about how UAW members at the Detroit companies pay $0 in monthly premiums for their health care plans, and that's something they're going to be pushing for in these negotiations. They want union strong work site, meaning the protections around favoritism and not being taking some of that discretion out of the manager's hands, and putting in place strong enforceable procedures for advancement and new job placement and things like this, and higher job security. So really pretty common things that you see in most UAW contracts, and since this is the first one, I think that they're trying to secure some of these kind of basic level stuff. So really exciting, and we will be following this negotiation very closely. At some point, I'm sure that we're going to try to get on somebody from the UAW at Volkswagen in Chattanooga to talk about the contract negotiations, maybe next time there's a big milestone. But very important stuff, and this is, the Volkswagen negotiations are really going to be important for the credibility of the UAW moving forward. If they are not able to get a good, strong contract for these workers, that is going to make it that much more difficult to organize the next plant, because they will say, well, they weren't able to do it at Volkswagen, so why would they be able to do it here? So it's really important for the UAW to be able to deliver, and I think all indications are that they will. We have on the line Brian Corliss. Brian Corliss is president of the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, an affiliate of IFPTE. IFPTE is a sponsor of the program. We appreciate their support. And the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, that is the union for engineers at Boeing, 16,000 of them in the Pacific Northwest. And so, Brian, we're really excited to have you on the program to talk about your union and what's going on with the machinists on strike at Boeing.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. Two quick things to corrections. I'm not actually the SPIA president. I'm our external communications lead. So,
okay.
The boss wasn't available, so you're stuck with me. So sorry about that. And then the latest count, we're almost up to 17,000 members now. So at Boeing. So,
awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Well, good deal. Glad to hear that. Thank you for the correction. External communications lead, and that's fine. We talk to we love talking to non-presidents as well. So appreciate your time, and that's really exciting about the increase in membership, almost 17,000. So let's talk about the membership. You said it's the engineering employees at Boeing. Who are these people? What do they do?
So yeah, we represent engineers and technical workers, scientists and pilots at Boeing. And then we also represent engineers and technical workers working for Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, Kansas. We're a little unusual in that we're almost a national local, if you will. We have bargaining units in 5 states. Most of them are here in the Northwest, and you're right. I mean, our biggest group is engineers at Boeing. They design aircraft. They work with the machinists quite closely as production engineers. They write some of the instructions that the mechanics use to assemble the planes. They do one of the most important things they do is that they certify that the planes were correctly assembled and are ready for delivery. Is when those planes go out the door, that's when Boeing makes its money.
Right. That's exactly right. And we have somebody in the chat. Teresa says, "Hey Brian, SPIA is a great partner with the Machinists. Rosie's Machinists 751. Thank you for your solidarity." And we spoke. Yeah, we spoke to a machinist last week. Oh, do what?
I know Teresa. We're neighbors out here in the burbs in Seattle.
Good deal. Well, glad that some other folks in the Pacific Northwest are tuning in. And we talked to another machinist. We talked to John Voss last week about some of their grievances with Boeing, some of the reasons that they are going on strike. Can you tell us if you have had similar issues with the company among your members?
Somewhat. My time with SPIA, I've only been here with them about a year, but I have been following the industry for a while. So back in 2000, in the middle of COVID, Boeing approached SPIA's executive team, the executive board, which is elected officials, full-time workers at Boeing and at Spirit, approached them and said, "Hey, what about a contract extension?" And so our team agreed. They hammered out an extension, and at the time, it looked like a pretty good deal. It locked in some wage increases, which in a period where all the airlines were shutting down, nobody's taking airplanes. The fact that they were able to secure some wage gains at all, get some stability in the labor agreement, it was seen as a win at the time. In our post-COVID world, with high inflation, with labor market shortages, with all the problems Boeing has had getting airplanes out the door, some of our members are now having second thoughts about it. So I don't want to try to predict what our membership's going to want when we go back to the table in 2026, but I'm pretty sure they're going to want wage improvements. Will not be surprised if retirement security is part of the program, and work-life balance. SPIA engineers are lucky in that they're pretty much the only engineers in the industry that get overtime pay. And most non-represented engineers, employer just works until their brains turn to mush. Our members work a lot of overtime too, but at least they're getting compensated for it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's really important. And the reason that so many engineers don't get overtime pay is because overtime is only legally necessary for certain segments of the workforce, right? And so if you're very highly compensated, or quote unquote highly compensated, if you're compensated above like $35,000 a year or something right now, the Biden administration is increasing that threshold to $55,000 a year over the course of the next couple of years. But if you're compensated higher than that, and if you have some sort of some amount of discretion, then you can be exempt from overtime. And so a lot of engineers, the companies argue, fall under those exemptions and don't pay overtime. But that doesn't mean that the companies can't. Of course, the companies can still pay overtime. And so that's what y'all have been able to do in your union contract, like you said, unlike most engineers in the industry. So that's a very exciting dynamic. And you mentioned that, your negotiations are coming up in 2026. Of course, in one sense, that's a long way away, but in another sense, 2 years can get here before you know it. But, right now, during this strike, your union has committed to supporting the machinists as much as possible. Can you talk about some of the ways that you're doing that?
Yeah, and there are a couple of things going on. Some of them are, boots on the ground. We're encouraging our members to, step outside. And I guess I should backtrack and explain. Most of the union contracts at Boeing require the members of those unions to continue working during another union's labor dispute. So, for example, when Boeing locked out its firefighters back in May, our union members, the machinist union members, we all had to keep coming to work. And during the current strike, our members at SPIA are at work at Boeing. And but we're saying to our members, hey, let's get out there, show support. You can take a few minutes during your lunch break, go out there, spend an hour after work if you can. If you've got time on the weekend, you know, if you're going into the Seahawks game, go an hour early. Spend some time on the picket line with our machinists, and you know, just show support. Firewood if you got it, drop off some donuts, but mostly, you know, get out there, be a warm body holding a sign. And the second thing, and this was big news out here locally in Seattle this week. Boeing announced on Wednesday that it was going to furlough all of its non-union and management employees for the duration of the machinist union strike. They were calling this a cash conservation move. And it's true. Boeing is carrying $45 billion in net debt right now. They've had, you know, one management disaster after another for the last 5 years. They haven't turned an actual profit since 2019. So as a cash saving move, they're furloughing the non-union and management employees out here 1 week every month for as long as the strike lasts. And Wednesday night, they emailed a message over to our senior leadership at SPIA and said, hey, we'd like you guys to volunteer to extend these furloughs to your membership. And so our executive board met on Thursday, and they duly considered it. And about 20 minutes later, they came back and said, well, no, I don't think we're interested in doing that. Thank you very much. So our guess was, I don't want to try to get into Boeing's head, what they were thinking. But our guess was that they were trying to split us off from the machinists. And our leadership said no.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's interesting because, you know, typically, or in a lot of instances, you know, the best thing that you could do would maybe to not work for a company while another group of its workers are on strike. But in this case, actually, you continuing to do the work that you can do, as long, you know, you're not doing machinists' work, but doing the work that you can do for the company and making them pay you for it is something that's adding to the pressure that Boeing is feeling from this strike. And so that's a really kind of interesting dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of unusual, but it's true. And we are making a real point in our communications to members. It's like, hey, if your manager comes to you and says, hey, you know, you can do this, right? You know, don't volunteer. If they come to you and, you know, pound on the table and order you to go something, well, you're going to have to go do it. But notify your council rep, which is what we call our stewards. Notify your steward right away. And also, you know, aside from the whole union solidarity issue, there's some really practical safety and quality issues involved here when non-trained workers are doing specific tasks. You know, the machinists, they get like 3 months of training specific to each task they do. And our members don't get that. So, you know, if a machinist needs that kind of training, well, our members are going to need that kind of training. So, you know, that, you know, we're instructing our members, hey, you know, if your manager says you have to go do something, well, tell them, sure, I'll go do it after I get my training on it. So there's that. And most of our members, I got to say, they get it. In a lot of cases, it's family. We don't have hard data on it, but we do know that there are a significant number of our members who, you know, maybe mom and dad were machinists. They were able to make enough money back in the day to send their kids to school. And so now their kids are engineers at Boeing, and they're our members. Or, you know, I know of a couple of couples where, you know, the husband's a machinist and the wife's an engineer, or vice versa. So, you know, you don't have to tell them. They know.
For sure.
Some of our new folks who may be new to, you know, right out of college, they've never been in a union before. Some of them, you know, we might have to explain it to them, but a lot of our members know without being told.
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic, and especially, I wasn't meaning that. I wasn't originally going to ask you about this, but I'm a federal employee. I'm a white collar worker. I have one of those clickety clack type of jobs, and something that we run into, unionists like myself and like you and your stewards, something that we run into among these folks who have degrees and have white collar kind of office jobs is a lot of times they don't feel like they need a union. And in my in my times where I'm feeling less charitable, I feel like they think that they're better than other people and that I'm so fancy and look at me important. I don't need a union, right? But there's certainly some of that. And so have you found anything that has kind of reliably been able to break through that notion of, like, I'm white collar, I work with my mind, with my brain, so I don't need a union. Unions are for blue collar workers, not for me. Have you found anything that's been able to reliably break through that?
I think there are a couple things going on. Look, I'm old. I've been around for a while. The younger workers coming into the workforce seem to get it pretty quickly. Our executive director, who's my boss, I report to him. He said it's been a couple of months ago. He was in a meeting with a group of about 200 of our members up in Everett, which is where Boeing has its largest factory, and he delivered the message to them that, hey, your employer does not care about you as an individual. They care about the work you put out. They care about how much you cost them, but they don't. They're not as worried about your hopes and dreams and aspirations. That's not on their radar screen. And he said for decades, our members have pushed back on that idea. Like, no, I know, Boeing's a great company. I know they want what's best for me. And the younger members are like, well, dude, duh. Tell us something we don't know. And so one of the things that's been, I don't know if I want to say exciting, but really been noticeable for us during the Machinists strike in particular, and leading in the week leading up to the contract vote, was how energized our younger members are. We've ran out of we're handing out union T-shirts for people to go wear when they're either at work or on the picket line when we're standing out there with the Machinists. And we ran out twice. We've reordered. Oh geez, we just had one order come in Friday. We've got another order that was supposed to come in. It's maybe going to be here Monday. We got another one coming next week. I mean, we can't keep the shirts in the union halls. We had to reprint signs again this week. Our members are really energized, and they're watching and they're engaged. And I don't know, in our case, maybe Boeing has done the job for us. Our members are seeing what happens if you don't stand together and try to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement. It's kind of putting the message across that, hey, as individuals, we're better off when we work together. And part of that's just generational change. I think your generation, younger people, are getting it much faster than my generation did. And that's great as someone who's been working in the union movement for about 15 years now. It's great to see.
Yeah, well, they say a bad boss is the best organizer, and I do think to be charitable to people of your generation, maybe I think that at some point in the past it was easier to believe that about companies, right? I mean, Boeing, there obviously it's always been the case that kind of generally companies don't care about their employees, but their rationale at different points in society, in history, in this country at least, has been like, okay, I don't care about my employees. I can't, I'm not physically capable of caring about my employees. I'm a corporation. I'm not a real thing, right? I'm a legal fiction. But if I compensate my employees as if I cared, right? Then that will actually be the thing that makes me profitable. And that will be the thing that creates a good product that people will want to buy, that will make me successful in the marketplace, right? And now that logic is just totally gone, and it's all about squeezing people for as much as they can, getting as much work for as little pay, and just completely kind of vampiric stuff among the owning class in this country. And so, I want to be charitable to my older sisters and brothers, but so.
Well, if I could,
no, go ahead.
I think you are right. We talk a lot about it, but 30 years ago, the new GE management system, Neutron Jack Welch, it changed the paradigm in the way we run capitalism in America, and the goal became to extract the most cash you could out of your operations in any way you could. And certainly we saw that at Boeing. All of the CEOs we've had at Boeing since 1997, when Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas, all of them have roots in the GE management system. And it's affected their approach to labor relations and employee compensation. I look back at it, way back in the day, my dad's uncle was a machinist at Boeing. And by the time he was, he'd been there for a while, he was able to buy himself, and this will be a reference to that only your Northwest listeners will get, but he was able to buy an acre down south of Seattle at Des Moines, overlooking Puget Sound. It was a gorgeous piece of property. I can't imagine how much it would sell for today, but he was able to make that on a blue collar wage. And even 10, 15 years ago, I used to work at IAM 751 as a communicator, and even back in those days, when our members would hit max pay after 6 years at Boeing, working up the progression ladder, man, that was life changing. You could go out, you could buy a house. You weren't buying a mansion, but you could buy a house. You could know you were going to be able to start a family. You might be able to buy a new car. Maybe you would buy a boat instead, whatever your priority was. It was a ticket to the middle class. And today, Boeing's having a hard time competing for entry-level workers with fast food places.
Right.
They've squeezed the pay so much. Even with the last contract, the one that the machinists voted down by 96%, which was astonishing. I thought it was going to get voted down, but if anybody told you 96%, they were lying. But even that one was like the bare minimum Boeing needed to do to be competitive in the local labor market.
Right.
And one of the things that we're seeing is that the younger machinists who are on strike now, they can go get jobs at DoorDash or delivering for Amazon that pay pretty much the same thing that they were making at Boeing. I saw one help wanted ad for a nationally known submarine sandwich shop, and if you got more than 6 months experience making sandwiches, they will pay you the same wage that a entry-level grade 4 mechanic at Boeing makes. And the grade 4 mechanics are the ones who are actually assembling the aircraft. They're the ones who put the actual airplanes together. So Boeing's just their pay is just not competitive in the local labor market, and they need to raise pay for themselves to be competitive, and that's part of the switch. In the old days, when my dad's uncle, when I was growing up, Boeing was paid above average wages for the region because it wanted to attract the best. It wanted to attract people who actually had skills and didn't need a lot of training. And today, it wants to compete with fast food places, and that's a shift in mindset. I'm sure that has nothing to do with any of the problems the company has had in the last 5 years.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We really need to get somebody on because this Jack Welch stuff has come up recently, particularly with the Boeing thing. But I've also read a lot about Jack Welch. We need to get a historian on to talk about just how, because a lot of people don't know. I mean, I know Jack Welch. Adam knows Jack Welch, but a lot of people don't know Jack Welch and just how cancerous his influence has been on businesses in America. And probably something like that would have happened anyway, but wow, he was like really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
And the irony of it in the Boeing situation is that GE itself has repudiated Jack Welch's GE management system, and Boeing is the only major corporation that still follows it.
Right.
And GE did it because it was really counterproductive, and it was actually hurting their business in the long run. But Boeing, as Harry Stonecipher, who was kind of one of the notorious early GE CEOs of Boeing, he said, you can make a lot of money going out of business. And he said, I wanted to change the culture because, this is a great engineering firm, but we're in business to make money. And so he that was his goal. He wanted to, building great airplanes was not his priority. His priority was building shareholder value. And a lot of us would argue that Boeing has followed in that path for the last 20 years.
So as we're wrapping up, I want to talk about Spirit Aerosystems, but I have one more question about Boeing. I'm interested in I'm the president of the Labor Council here in North Alabama, and we have passed a resolution unanimously among our local affiliates, encouraging our local affiliates to, where they can, align contract expirations with May 1st, 2028. That was a call by the UAW that they made after they resolved their stand-up strike. And so I'm wondering if this strike, along with these other kind of things that are happening in the labor movement, has generated any interest or conversation between your union and the machinists and maybe the Teamsters and the firefighters at Boeing about closer collaboration on contract negotiations in the future, like maybe planning to sync up your contracts in the next round of negotiations or something like that. And I know it's hard, and it would be like a difficult thing to do to kind of change because Boeing doesn't want that, obviously, right? I mean, if you line up all of your contracts, that's why the UAW and the Teamsters at UPS, that's one of the reasons that they've been able to be so successful at those companies in maintaining a certain standard, whereas in other industries where we've had, in the paper mill industry in particular, all of the mills have different contract expirations. And so they haven't been able to launch, nationwide strikes. And so it's been difficult for even union paper mills to kind of fight back against this kind of stuff. And so obviously Boeing doesn't want you to be able to sync up contracts. But I'm wondering, have any of these conversations started yet?
And you're absolutely right. The employer has a vote. So for us, if it's a priority for our members, we're a very member-driven union. So if it's a priority for our members, we will negotiate that. The logistics of it will be hard. May 2028. That means we would have to ratify basically an 18-month contract and then turn around and negotiate again. So we would just have to see what the appetite for that. Are the members on board? And it'll be the same for the machinists. Right now they're trying to get a fair contract, and syncing up with us. I don't think that's their priority, and maybe it shouldn't be. They've got to look out for their members, and we get that. We understand that. So yeah, I think it's an incredibly worthy goal. It would give us all so much more leverage. But just in the specific situation of our unions at Boeing, 2028 isn't a reasonable goal.
Yeah, no,
so we would have to look farther out.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Some unions in Minnesota, for example, they have been doing this. They started a campaign to, like 10 or 15 years ago, to begin syncing up contracts, among like the service employees, the teachers, there was like 10 or 15 different unions that represented some like 60,000 people within Minneapolis, I think. And they, over a period of 10 years, like 2 to 3 contract cycles, they gradually got closer and closer together. And now all the contracts between all these different unions are like within 3 months of each other, I think 3 to 6 months. And so it would definitely be a long-term project, and it would be very, very difficult to do it all by May 1st, 2028. But I was just interested in, so I appreciate your answering that about, the degree to which that's been discussed. As we wrap up, you mentioned that you're in contract talks with Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, Kansas. Spirit Aerosystems is a supplier of some of the parts for Boeing. And so what are some of the issues at Spirit Aerosystems that your members are pushing for? How are negotiations going? Is Spirit, being like, we're in the news for a lot of really bad things, so we're just gonna give them what they want, and we don't want to be in the news again about being a bad company. We want to resolve this quickly and equitably, and so is that kind of the position that they're taking in these negotiations?
I can't really say that. We started on Tuesday. We've met a couple of times. It's still very early. We've shared some proposals, some high level, 30,000 feet. We're in aerospace. We talk about the 30,000 foot view a lot. So we've provided some preliminary proposals, mostly around benefits from what the folks at the table are telling me. We've got until November, realistically, to work out a deal with them. Our contract expires in December 1st. And just for background, we have 2 bargaining units in Wichita at Spirit. One for the engineers, one for the technical workers. And the contract that's up in December is for about 1,000 engineers. And so we're negotiating for them. We aren't interested in any concessions, not in this marketplace, not in this environment. And the fact that Boeing is negotiating to buy Spirit does kind of complicate things. It's unusual. But Boeing's purchase would not close until summer of 2025, most likely, maybe sometime in the second quarter. And so for the foreseeable, between now and then, we're negotiating with Spirit, and we're going to make a good faith effort to come to an agreement that rewards our members for the work they do. And whoever our employer ends up being long term, they're going to need a collective bargaining agreement that offers engineers incentives to come to Wichita and stay in Wichita, put down roots, build long-term stable careers, and really build their skills. And we want to make sure that our employer has the tools it will need to create a top-tier aerospace engineering workforce. And so that's our goal.
All right. Brian Corliss, External Communications Lead for the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, SPIA, and IFPTE local. Brian, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. No nerds, no birds.
That's right. No nerds, no birds. I like that. I should have mentioned that at the top. That's a good motto or slogan. So now we're getting to the topic that we have highlighted on our thumbnail and our title. That is the Teamsters Non-Endorsement. The Teamsters did not endorse in the presidential race, and we have thoughts about that, and I know that you do too. But I don't have just a whole lot that I wanted to say about it. I wanted to leave most of the time for other people's thoughts. So Adam, we've been texting back and forth. Are you good with trying that out, or you just keep it to what we had what we had planned?
I would say keep it to what we had planned, just because I have already, we've already...
Okay. No,
we've
that's
already
fine.
had some issues today, and we want to respect the listeners and your time and everything like that. So
sure.
So
Yeah, just a reminder, you will be able to call in. You can call in now, 844-899-TVLR. You will not be able to hear us if you call in. You will not be able to hear us. You'll not be able to have a conversation, so you'll have to wait for the beep. The beep means that you're on the air. When you hear the beep, you say your name, where you're calling from, and give us your comment. Keep it to 2 to 4 minutes, and we'll respond if we have a response once you wrap up. So call in, you hear the beep, you give us your thoughts, you tell us your name, where you're calling from, your thoughts, and then you hang up. That's the way it's going to go today. Sorry about that. Hopefully we can take some. We can have a better calls maybe next week. Okay, so the Teamsters International Executive Board has refused to endorse in the presidential race in 2024. This is different. They're taking a different tack than most unions. Most unions have already endorsed Kamala Harris, including the AFL-CIO, which is the largest federation of unions in the United States. The Teamsters say, at least at the international level, they are saying that they're doing this because there is no clear mandate to endorse from the membership. And to back this claim up, they released 3 polls. The first one were in-person town hall straw polls that showed Biden with a 44% support and Trump with 36% support. Other candidates with less. Then they had an electronic member poll that showed Harris with, and this was after Biden dropped out, it showed Harris with only 34% support and Trump with 59% support. They then they released a third poll that they say was a research phone poll, and these last 2 polls were done by independent polling outlets. The research phone poll showed that showed Harris with 31% support and Trump with 58% support. So they say that is the big reason that they did not endorse, because they did not have a clear mandate from the membership to endorse. They had Sean O'Brien had some policy reasons for not endorsing as well. He said in a press release, neither major candidate was able to make serious commitments to our union to ensure the interests of working people are always put before big business. We sought commitments from both Trump and Harris not to interfere in critical union campaigns or core union industries and to honor our members' right to strike, but were unable to secure those pledges. During the Teamsters rank and file presidential roundtables, the union shared feedback from members in the railroad and airline industries who work under the Railway Labor Act and are at the mercy of the government intervention that often prevents work stoppages. While 10,000 Teamsters at United Airlines are currently negotiating a new agreement, tens of thousands of railroad Teamsters were forced to accept a new contract implemented by Congress without member support in 2022. In roundtable discussions with Trump in January and Harris this month, neither candidate promised not to intervene to force similar RLA contracts, which undermines workers' bargaining leverage. While Harris pledged, if elected, to sign the PRO Act, an essential piece of labor legislation strengthening union protections, and criticized dangerous right-to-work laws that are enacted to bankrupt unions, Trump would not commit to veto national right-to-work legislation if he returned to the White House. So there's some real stuff there, the real stuff there about, and reasonable things to not endorse a candidate over if they're not able to say, I'm not going to break a strike, especially if it affects your members. I can understand being hesitant to support or I can understand also not endorsing that candidate. That's not completely nonsensical, right? You can kind of understand that. But it is worth noting that immediately following the international announcement from the Teamsters, locals and joint councils representing some 1 million Teamsters endorsed Kamala Harris. And these endorsements started pouring out, I mean, within an hour of the international union making this announcement. And so at this point now, locals and joint councils representing the vast majority of Teamsters, especially when you consider, the Teamsters represent 1.3 million people. Well, 100 or 200,000 of those folks are in Canada, right? So you're talking about like the vast majority of Teamsters in the United States. Their locals and joint councils have endorsed Kamala Harris. Interestingly, including the rail Teamsters. The rail conference of the Teamsters Union has endorsed now Kamala Harris, despite the fact that the International Union is using their grievances to not endorse. So that's interesting. There are some people are hypothesizing on Twitter maybe that this represents a break with O'Brien among the local leadership, that potentially this indicates that these leaders from across the country, the leaders of their locals and joint councils, are kind of done with Sean O'Brien and done with his kind of flirtations with the right. And this is a signal that there is going to be a break and they will be supporting a different candidate for the general presidency of the Teamsters in 2026. Now, John Palmer, who is a current member of the International Executive Board, formerly represented the South. I think now he is an at-large member of the International Executive Board. John Palmer seems to think that this is more coordinated, that this is not a rebellion among the local leadership against Sean O'Brien. This is, in fact, the local leadership executing on a plan that they made behind the scenes with Sean O'Brien to allow everybody to get what they feel like they needed to maintain their positions of power. And so he is kind of hypothesizing that Sean O'Brien made commitments to Trump, either that the union would endorse Trump or that the union would not endorse Harris or something like that. And so to be able to maintain this relationship with Trump and keep that line of communication open, he requested that these members of the International Executive Board vote not to endorse at the local level. But John Palmer, the reason that he thinks that this is not a rebellion, but is rather something that's more coordinated, is because he says that some of the members of the International Executive Board, immediately after they voted not to endorse at the national level, they went back to their locals and supported their local endorsing Kamala Harris for president. And so John Palmer thinks this is not really a rebellion. This is everybody working in a kind of coordinated fashion to give everybody a little like what they feel like they need. It is worth noting that, even with the locals and joint councils representing the vast majority of Teamsters having endorsed, this will not be nearly as beneficial to the Kamala Harris campaign as if the International had endorsed, because the International endorsement opens the gates to significant resources that the locals and the joint councils do not have. The international unions and the AFL-CIO, they have the ability to function as something of a quarterback for independent expenditure and support campaigns for, the presidency in this case, but for other, for other campaigns as well, that it is very difficult for locals to do on their own. They just don't have the same kind of resources that can be coordinated and, called from the international level. So even though, you have now representatives of the vast majority of Teamsters supporting Kamala Harris, this is not going to be as helpful for Kamala Harris as if the international had endorsed. So, Sean O'Brien was able to get a lot of news hits off of this. He was on CNN, he was on Fox News, he was on PBS, which I think is a very big kind of priority for Sean O'Brien, is to get on the news. And so he was able to get that. So, that's, I suppose, good for him. And, so that is kind of where we're at. And I don't have that much else to say about it, other than, the both sidesing of, what's going on. It is, I can understand still not supporting the Democrats or not endorsing the Democrats as a union. I think that is a calculation that can be made. But I do think that you should be more clear about, especially as it relates to the rights of your members, one of these parties are more dangerous. Just because of, we can look at the records at this point and very clearly, domestically, obviously there are international issues that are of importance and that should be considered. That Kamala Harris in particular is, kind of culpable for, referencing what's going on in Israel and Gaza. But domestically, I think that part of I did want to say this poll, 60% of Teamsters support Donald Trump. I do not believe that. I think that is a BS poll, and I'm not a poll denier typically, but that is just absolutely impossible for me to believe. I'm interested in other Teamsters' thoughts on that. Maybe I'm wrong. I did have one Teamster say that that's not surprising to them, but I've heard other Teamsters say that they think it's exactly the opposite. I don't know, but that just seems, knowing what I know about union members and the way that union members statistically vote, that is just almost impossible for me to believe that 60%, not 60% of members don't support endorsing Harris. 60% of members support the union endorsing Donald Trump. That does not compute. That doesn't make sense to me. But if that is true, that is a problem of political education that the union should be taking seriously. AOC kind of criticized Sean O'Brien for some of this, and Sean O'Brien hit AOC back saying that, members in her district in New York overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump as well. And that is not, the evidence for that is not in any of these things. They did not release the crosstabs. They did not release the methodology for any of these polls. And so, there's no evidence for that statement right now. And in fact, the local leadership of the Teamsters, of multiple Teamsters unions in New York, in their endorsements of Kamala Harris, say that their members overwhelmingly support. They're not saying that just that, the local executive board is supporting the union or Kamala Harris. They're saying that we took a poll of the members and that they overwhelmingly support Harris. And the claim that Teamsters in New York overwhelmingly support Donald Trump from Sean O'Brien, that is even more impossible to believe than nationwide Teamsters support Donald Trump. And that makes me think that, that puts these numbers in even less believable territory, right? That Sean O'Brien is going out there and saying that the overwhelming majority of New York Teamsters support Donald Trump. There's just no way. I don't buy that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't buy it. So yeah, there we go. That's what I have to say. Adam, you have any other thoughts?
Well, I really enjoyed Hamilton Nolan's piece and In These Times about this. Recommend folks check that out. I generally agree with his take on it, but we do have a caller on the line. If you want to see if they heard your instructions and they are ready to give their spiel, knowing that they can't hear us, respond. But if you want to give it a shot, we're down.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it.
All right. Let's do it. We're going to bring you on the air, 510 area code.
Hey, this is Kat. I'm calling in from Oakland, California. I'm a UPS part-timer, shop steward in Teamsters Local 70. Also a member of Teamsters Mobilize, as well as Maoist Communist Union. And I'm glad y'all are talking about this topic today. I had watched the Fox News interview with Sean O'Brien, and I found it to be really a lot of hand-wringing and word salad on O'Brien's part. But what really stood out to me and what I think was probably the most insidious aspect of that interview is that at the end, Sean O'Brien basically just throws in the towel completely, and he's like, at the end of the day, nobody in Teamsters really cares about this stuff. They just want it to be all over with, and so do I. Basically, in short, saying that politics doesn't actually concern us as union members and as workers. And to be fair, it's important to be clear what we actually mean by politics, because there's this misconception, I think, that a lot of people have that's promoted by the mainstream media and whatnot, that politics is all just like squabbling between Democrats and Republicans, and that shit drives me up the wall too. But if we understand politics as the struggles between the most broad and most general sets of opposing material interests in the society, then we are talking about struggles between classes, between the working class and the capitalist class. And there is a possible alternative universe where the IBT leadership could use this non-endorsement tactic as a way to advocate for independent political action of the working class in our shared interests as workers by saying, we need to join up with other unions. We need to organize across industries. We need to organize migrant workers who are being brought in as pawns in the economy. We need to form working class political organizations, build a labor party, fight to actually overturn the RLA and Taft-Hartley, organize to block arms shipments to Israel that are continuing to promote the genocide of Palestinian people that both parties and both candidates openly support. But that's not what they said. They just said, the best we can get is crumbs. They didn't offer us enough crumbs this time, so we're just going to forget about all the political stuff and focus purely on union struggles. And to be clear, struggling for better wages and better working conditions is absolutely a necessary part of class struggle. But if it's the only thing that we're doing, and we're kind of saying politics is optional and trying to band together as a class of workers to fight against the ruling class is optional, and we can kind of just focus on fighting our bosses one at a time, we're going to be doing that till we go extinct, whether it's from nuclear warfare or climate change or what have you. And when you see that these are really the stakes that are on the table with this question, I think it's pretty clear that this move by the leadership of the Teamsters, which is really a dozen people, it's not actually the rank and file that made this decision. This non-endorsement, and specifically the way that it's being explained by the leadership, is a betrayal. I think that we need to see that straight up, and I hope it serves as a wake-up call for militants in the union who have seen Sean O'Brien as this progressive reform figure, because many people, I think, have been content to sleepwalk through the status quo where the unions always just endorse whoever the Democratic candidate is, and I see those endorsements as betrayals as well. I don't think the Democrats serve the interests of the working class. But hopefully this kind of overt sort of winking and nudging towards Trump by Sean O'Brien and the IBT leaders will cause people to stop and question, who is O'Brien actually working for? Is it the workers or is it the capitalists? So overall, I think we need to call out this non-endorsement for what it is, but also use it as an opportunity in whatever way possible to open people's eyes to the nature of the union leadership and to what really needs to be done to advance our long-term interests. Appreciate y'all solidarity. Looking forward to hearing from other Teamsters today.
Yep. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kat. Thanks for that call. If you want to get where Kat was, 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857 is the phone number. We don't have any other calls lined up right now. Just want to make sure really quick. Kat, you can't hear us, right?
Oh, Kat is already off.
Okay, Kat's already off. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, Jeff did reply to that message. I don't know if you've been able to see that yet, but 844-899-8857. Political... I agree very much about what Kat said about politics. People use politics like a dirty word, as if, I don't want to be involved in politics. Politics is bad. I don't like politics. We shouldn't do politics. And we really should. There needs to be something of like a reappreciation for politics, because politics is just kind of like Kat said, the fight over what our society is going to be like. What is our society going to be like? How are we going to organize our lives? How are we going to organize our communities? I think that is an important and valiant thing to participate in. Politics is good. People shouldn't shy away from politics or being political. It's not bad to be political. And then sometimes they'll say things, like this isn't about politics. Like maybe they'll say something about how I don't know, this or that issue that they feel like is super, super clear. Like this is obvious that people should support. This isn't about politics. This is just about doing the right thing. And it's like, well, doing the right thing is politics. That's politics.
Yeah, I agree, and I hear what you're saying, and I also appreciate Kat's call very much. I appreciate that perspective, and I think there are different ways this could have played out, and I do think there is a case for a non-endorsement. I think there's a case for an endorsement of Harris. I see both sides of that. There's pros and cons with both approach, but the approach that they did take, which is a non-endorsement while basically allowing Trump to take a victory lap with it, right, by releasing this questionable data saying that, you had a 20-point swing from Biden to Trump in the last few months. Yeah, it doesn't all add up, frankly. And it's a little bit weird. And I don't know how effective this is going to be in actually accomplishing anything, right? Because you're not going to get anything from Trump. You're just not, in terms of your interest as a member or as unions. Whether it's the National Labor Relations Board, the Department of Labor, the courts, the Rail Labor Act. Go down the list. I don't see where you're going to get a measurable win with this approach from that side of things. And you're obviously not making a lot of friends on the other side of the aisle with this approach. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So that's a calculation to be made. And then, to Kat's point, there's a way to do a non-endorsement where you really are trying to educate your members and build independent power. And you may argue this is not the time for that, or that that's not the right approach right now, whatever your thoughts on that. But, like you said, that's not what they're doing. And so it's a very strange phenomenon. And I do know that it has hit mainstream political consciousness. Like lots of people who follow politics, quote unquote, who watch TV, they know about this stuff, right? They're asking us, right? Hey, you're union guys. What do you think about all this Teamster stuff? People are confused by it. They're not sure. Same with the Sean O'Brien appearance at the RNC. It looks like they're flirting with the Republicans, and people are really wondering what that's about. Mm-hmm. So, those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, we've got another couple of callers on the line, and we'll go to the 352 area code first. Just a reminder, I have one more point, but just a reminder, you'll hear the beep, tell us your name, where you're calling from, and then give us your comment. You're not going to be able to hear us. But, I will say that oh, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. What was it? You were talking about something.
Well, I would question some of the, the legitimacy of what they presented. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, me too. I can't. Oh, all this news coverage does, I think, there are lessons that can be learned from the fact that the Teamsters, everybody is talking about, or at least, everybody's not, it's not like, everybody's talking about it all the time. It's not in the news, but everybody that follows politics is hearing about the Teamsters non-endorsement. And I do think there's a lesson to be learned here about waiting and holding your endorsement till later in the cycle, because all the unions jumped right in for Biden like in January, the earliest, and this was the big news lead that they were trying to make. It was like, oh, the reason this should be newsworthy is because we've never endorsed this early. And well, like clearly that did not penetrate the consciousness in the same way that just this one union not endorsing has. And so, I think that there is maybe some, like, if we can learn any positive lesson, it's that maybe there's value in waiting a little bit so that you can get your union's priorities in the news as you discuss the endorsement. That's something I think we can learn from. 352 area code is in the Zoom, or not in the Zoom, in the call. Let's bring them on the air. 352 area code, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, did they just...
I think it dropped off.
Okay, well, we have another one in the Zoom. Let's bring on 714. Can you hear us? Did you hear the beep?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You're good to go.
But you can't hear us, so you're not hearing us say that.
It's
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Put him back in the waiting room. We've got another one. We've got somebody else on. The whole thing. You cannot hear us. That's the whole problem with the phones right now.
Today. Very unfortunate.
Especially since we were wanting to do, but you cannot hear us. If you're listening to us right now,
you got to be like Kat. You got to have your talking points and just call and give us your hot takes.
Yeah.
And boom, we'll hear it.
So 352. Let's bring 352 on.
All right. Let's see here. All right, Jacob. We're making the executive decision. We're gonna move on from the calls because it's just not working, brother. They keep dropping off. So I'm not sure what's happening.
Good morning. My name is Jose Francisco Negrete, calling from Anaheim, California, Teamster Local 952, and from Teamster Mobilize. All these views are mine. Don't represent the international nor my local. And you guys touched on some great points, especially with Kat. I want to see the methodology. I want to see the sample size. If it was so transparent, why not have these roundtable meetings with the presidents be on Zoom or be on a YouTube Live or Facebook Live? I wish there was more transparency. But going on Monday after the meeting, I read a New York Times article, that called the meeting with the vice president tense. I don't remember reading any such articles to describe the meeting with Trump as tense. So there's that one to wrap your head around. And then on Wednesday, when the executive board did meet, 14 members, 14 executive board members did not endorse, but they later on endorsed Harris or Walt's ticket through their locals, joint councils, or whatever ways they did. But 3 voted for Harris. And then going back on to this research poll, it's funny that 40,000 members were so-called called. I didn't receive the phone call. I think a lot of Teamsters didn't receive that phone call. So we do want to see the sample size. We do want to see the methodology that they used. And this whole endorsement thing, it was just why even announce this and then just say we did not endorse? This is not 1996 where it was clearly obvious what Clinton did was a betrayal to the working class by signing NAFTA that desecrated, all those factories from Ohio, Michigan up there, and then they got moved to Mexico, pitting worker against worker. This is not such case. If the Oz administration were to take a conscientious objector and object to what's going on in Gaza, then I can understand that. But there was no such thing. If he had a problem with the Railway Act being implemented on our railroad comrades, why didn't he speak up back then? He didn't say nothing. He didn't say nothing. When the comrade approached him saying it was a betrayal of the federal government, all he told the comrade was, "You don't know, you don't know, you don't know." And then if you have a problem with the government interfering in our contract negotiations, why didn't you say so during the UPS negotiations when the Biden administration's liaison Celeste Drake was in those meetings? We ran 6% of the GDP. So for him to give those excuses, just very hypocritical, shows us again that he is disingenuous when it comes to the working to the Teamsters. And then on Thursday, he got on Dana Bash's show on CNN, and the general president said, when referring to the National Black Caucus, when speaking about the National Black Caucus chairman, quote, he said, the National Black Caucus represents a certain group that is not affiliated with the Teamsters. And I think my time is up. So,
No, you're still on, but yeah, no, that I did see that he said the Teamsters National Black Caucus is a group that is not affiliated with the Teamsters, which, like, in a strict sense, it's kind of an independent organization, but it's made up of black Teamsters. That is a wild thing to say about your membership. Let's bring this 317 area code on. I think that is Brandon.
Hey, I'm a Teamster from the Heartland. I'm not gonna give my name because of the revenge-based politics that go on in the Teamsters. But there's a lot that I could say. Mostly what I'll say is about Sean O'Brien. Now, I think that he stumbled ass backwards into making the right decision by not endorsing either candidate, but he didn't do that out of some higher understanding of the two-party system and the way that it is weaponized against working people. He did that out of his own ego and the way that it affects politics in the Teamsters. He was obviously very offended. He won't shut up about it, about not being invited to the DNC. He probably would have endorsed Kamala Harris if he would have been invited to the DNC and would have been allowed to give, his triumphalist speech about taking on corporate greed, which none of us believe anymore. Actually, I'm sure there are many Teamsters who do believe his BS still. But if you're paying attention, you know that this guy is a bully, that he is just the old guard reincarnate. He's shed his born-again reformer BS, and you can see that by the clear politics of retaliation that go on with the IBT. He's, retaliated in, some way, or is planning on retaliating against those locals that have endorsed Harris Waltz. Now, somebody will have to confirm this, but I was told that he pulled his organizers from the TNBC, the National Black Caucus, when they endorsed Harris Waltz. So there is a clear pattern of retaliation and breaking strikes before they happen in the Teamsters right now. What happened during the Miller strike, Local 997 was trusteed in an effort to break their strike. Absolutely shameful things going on in the Teamsters. But to be clear, no political party supports unions. The Republicans outright hate us, and the Democrats expect us to pay them, not to destroy us. But if Sean O'Brien was actually serious about taking on the two-party system, he wouldn't be talking about unions as if they are a special interest group that can go from one party to another. He would be talking about building actual working class power. But I guess that's sort of all I have to say right now. And also as a former TDU member, I'm ashamed of TDU, and I'm ashamed that I campaigned for Sean O'Brien. But things could have been worse. He could have endorsed Trump.
Yeah, that's true. Appreciate your comments. We're about to wrap up here. 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857 if you want to leave us a voicemail. That was not Brandon. Brandon said he's just getting a busy signal, so I don't know what's going on. The phone system is going crazy today, so not sure what's up with that. But Brandon, if you would like to leave us a voicemail, we'll play it on the next show. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for bearing with us through the tech difficulties. Adam, you have anything that you want to plug before we head out?
Sure, yeah. I just want to remind folks of a couple of things, especially those of you who are local or, in the driving distance of Birmingham. The Alabama Troublemaker School on Saturday, October 19th. And if you're listening to this and you're not going to be able to make it to the Troublemaker School, maybe you don't live anywhere close to Birmingham, you can do these wherever you're at, right? Labor Notes works with folks on the ground to do, regional trainings all over the country. I know they had one in Buffalo, or have one in Buffalo coming up. Right, so just want to put that out there, but definitely if you can make it, the Alabama Troublemaker School, Saturday, October 19th in Birmingham, go to labornotes.org/events, and you can find out more. And, of course, for you local folks, don't forget to vote in the District 1 runoff in Huntsville on Tuesday, September 24th. And that's all I had. Again, I really appreciate everyone bearing with us with the technical difficulties. It's always going to be a technical difficulty when we're short-staffed, it seems like. So really appreciate everyone participating today. And hopefully next time around it will be working better and we can really, have some good conversations back and forth. Because there were lots of things that... Jose and Kat and our other callers brought up today that, I would like to have asked a little bit more about. Sorry about that, but hopefully it'll work better next time. Thanks, y'all.
And with that, we'll see you next week, folks.